Hey everybody, Dr. Sajewicz here. I have another great video for you guys to check out. And today I want to talk to you about an esophagram or one of those upper GI studies versus a CT with contrast to rule out some sort of leak. Okay, now I am very biased on this topic, and I have become more biased as I've gotten more experienced in my career. But there's something that's lacking, or there's something that I guess is still kind of old school, and maybe it's not all of them, but the weak link here I think is the surgeon. Okay, now maybe they aren't up to date on everything, and that's okay. That's our job, right? That's my job to be up to date on all the imaging stuff so that I can help my colleagues, right? So that I can help my friendly neighborhood surgeon. So, yeah, they tend to order an upper GI or an esophagram to rule out a leak. And to me, knowing what I know about doing a fluoroscopy study and doing a CT, I mean, it's just obvious to me. You get so much more detail, so much more information in a CT scan. Okay, so let me just give you a quick example. In this case, just happened today, and so it's fresh on my mind. And after a nice discussion with one of my great technologists, hey, this is what we decided to do. And you know what? We didn't even check with the surgeon. We just did it. I mean, he ordered an upper GI to rule out a leak, and I was like, screw that. I'm going to do what I want to do because I think it's the right thing for the patient, and it turned out perfect. So maybe I just got lucky, or maybe I know what the hell I'm doing, and I'm pretty good. Anyway, so let's go through this case. So this patient had stomach surgery, right? They had a distal antrectomy. So they had let's say the more distal or end of their stomach resected, and then that was connected up to a piece of small bowel, the jejunum, so they had a gastrojejunostomy. All right, great. They're looking for a leak there. But what happens to the other pieces of bowel? All right, so you have what used to be, I guess, at the end of the stomach was the duodenum. Well, that's not completely removed, right? You have the gallbladder and the common duct and the pancreas with the pancreatic duct dumping fluids, right? Dumping like these digestive enzymes into bowel, right? It's supposed to be dumping it into the duodenum. So you can't just tie that off. You have to connect it up to a piece of bowel, all right? So they left in a piece of the duodenum to drain those organs and help with digestion, right? Of course, you need that. And you're never going to see any of that on an upper GI. Okay, so let's go through this example now. I'm going to give you a look at what we found. So here's an NG tube right in the middle. Do I have to switch tools here? Let's switch tools. Does this help? I don't know if this helps. So now it's like kind of a crosshairs. So patient has an NG tube in. This comes down into the stomach. Now the stomach is here. Okay, now the stomach has air in it, and guess what? Contrast that we gave the patient. I think we actually had the patient drink, but you could have just given it through the NG tube. And tube's coming down into the stomach. Stomach has some contrast in it, and it's connected up to this piece of jejunum right here. And you know what? It looks fine. There is maybe a little bit edema at the anastomosis, but there's no leak. Great. But what the hell is this back here behind the stomach? This is a peripherally enhancing fluid collection containing, where is it? There's a droplet of air in here somewhere. Right there. A little droplet of air. Okay, so the suspicion right now is that this could be an abscess, right? Hopefully it's just a postoperative seroma and your body will reabsorb it over time and no big deal. However, patient has a little bit of a white count. So they're going to track it. If the white count gets worse, boom, abscess. They're going to have to treat it. If the white count goes down, well, then they'll probably just watch it. Okay? All right. So, yeah, the stomach is connected up to this piece of jejunum. That looks great. Okay, nice. No obstruction. Now, remember what I said about the duodenum, right? You can't just get rid of that, right? So you have the liver with the bile ducts, and I'm over here, if you can see the cursor. And the common duct has to come down here into the pancreatic head and then connect up to duodenum. Okay, the main pancreatic duct, which you can't see, here's the pancreas. I'm just going to follow it for you guys. That has a duct that's supposed to dump also into the duodenum. Here is a piece of duodenum. It comes down and it starts to come across. That's normal. Now, if we follow this more like superiorly towards the head, look at this. It just balloons out into this piece of bowel, right, containing air. Why is it so dilated, right? So it's oversewed here, right? So it's not connected to the stomach anymore, right? So the surgeon just has this suture in the way of where it used to be connected up to the stomach, but it looks dilated. Now let's bring up the coronal. So this is the coronal reformat, and we're going to go right into the duodenum. So here's my duodenum. Here's the dilated piece, and you follow that down to a narrowing right here. Okay, so the surgeon had no idea this was there. No clue whatsoever. They just know that the patient has some symptoms. You are never going to see this on an upper GI study. It's impossible because contrast does not come into this piece of bowel. How is it going to get in here, right? The stomach is over here. The stomach leads to this piece of jejunum, and there's no leak, right? So the contrast is going from the stomach to the jejunum, and that's going to go into more distal bowel. It's not going to reflux into this piece of duodenum. So you're never going to see this, and you're never going to see this stricture. That's why with CT, you get so much more information. It's worth doing a CT as opposed to the upper GI. Now, let's go back to our, original discussion. Here we have the NG tube coming down into the stomach, right? Contrast in the stomach. Okay, so we will see this totally on an upper GI. You'll see the contrast in the stomach. You'll see the contrast coming from the stomach into the piece of jejunum, and then you'll just see it kind of like float off into the bowel distally. Great. What are you not going to see on the upper GI? So let's just scroll a little bit posterior. Sorry, I was going in the wrong direction. A little posterior. You are going to see the abscess behind the stomach. That will be impossible to see unless there's like a communication with it, right? So unless the piece of bowel, the piece of stomach is perforated, and you can see the contrast coming into this collection behind the stomach, you will never see that in an upper GI. So you will falsely tell the surgeon that everything is okay, I don't see a leak, nothing to worry about. Whereas with a CT, we called the surgeon right away. We told him, hey, there's a collection behind the stomach, could be an abscess, not sure, but it's pretty suspicious, and he's going to have to decide what to do about this now. Okay? We also had a chance to tell him that, you know, that piece of duodenum that you oversewed over here that is still left connected up to the common duct and the pancreatic duct? Well, it's pretty damn dilated, okay? And I don't want that suture to blow out. And why is it dilated? Well, we found a stricture. Okay, let's go back to the coronal. Here's our coronal. Here's our dilated piece of duodenum that's oversewed over here. Here's the suture line. Follow that down. Boom. There is a narrowing right there, and that's why this piece is dilated. Okay, so with the CT scan, we found a whole bunch of stuff that the surgeon never would have known about if we did an upper GI. Okay, CT is truth. CT is the gold standard, and little by little, we will educate our surgeons and get them to start doing more CT scans with contrast or with oral and IV contrast if necessary, right? Especially for a leak, you have to do the oral contrast. And we're going to push them in that direction, even if we have to drag them along. So that's all I really wanted to tell you guys about today. And hey, this is on YouTube, guys. It's free for everybody. Do me a favor and give the video a like if you got something out of this and if you thought it was educational. And please become a subscriber so that you know when new videos come out, you get it right away, you get the notification. And the other thing is, if you haven't downloaded my imaging prep guide yet, you really should go ahead and do that. And that's at www.imagingprepguide.com. I'll have the link up in the video show notes. And yeah, thanks a lot for coming and watching, and hopefully I'll keep putting out these videos for you guys and give you some education. And thanks a lot. My techs are great that I work with, and we discuss a lot of these cases, and I've helped them realize that fluoroscopy, it's kind of old school. CT is truth, right? And they have come to realize that as well. And guess what? A lot of times my techs are saying, they're even suggesting, hey, should we do the CT instead? And you know what? Yes, we should. That's the answer. Yes, we should. Okay. See you next time. Thank you.